Howdy. Got another story for you today. Got another point at the end of it. A little bit different than the norm, but are any stories ever really the same story? So here's the deal. I've never been overly political. I've mentioned that I'm liberal. I've said that every once in a while there's a topic on which I think I'm super liberal, but in general I'm liberal. But I like to think I'm fair. Back in the 80s, things were a little bit different than they are now. Oddly enough, because even though we had Ronald Reagan that we had to deal with, we had a Congress that actually worked with each other. The Senate and the House pretty much would pass bills that nobody was ever totally happy with, but things got done. They worked with each other, they would sit down, they would negotiate, and then certain things would happen. Every once in a while, yes, the leading party would get something through that the other side may not like, but in general, you had a lot more cooperation. But it was interesting in the fact that 1988 was a magical year for me. Like I said, I'm never very political, but I've always been a fan of Reverend Jesse Jackson. As a fan of Reverend Jesse Jackson, I really can't tell you why, I just was. I love to hear him talk. He's just one of those guys. He was very glib, and he just gave you this feeling that everything was going to be good. And so what happened is that in 88, he was running for president. Now, he had also run in 1984, but it wasn't going to happen. And the thing is that in 1988, he actually won some primaries. So it was actually looking pretty good for Jesse Jackson. And he was going to all the different cities, and he came to Syracuse. And what was interesting about it is that, one, I didn't plan on going. Two, I was at that time the regional director of a medical billing company for physicians' claims. And I had a big office in the Syracuse area, and I had offices in 4 or 5 other areas. But on this particular day, I happened to be in Syracuse, and it was the worst day I ever had working that job. Me and the employees were all talking. We were kind of fighting with each other. This was the first time where I was, quote unquote, the man or the person totally in charge. I reported to people who lived in another city in the Albany area. So it was just me. But I always tried to be fair and have conversations with folks, and we were just having a bad day. Things were just not right. I didn't know necessarily at the time, but the company was starting to kind of wind down because even though what they did, they had early technology, it was being bypassed by true computer technology. But at that time, it was just one of those days where we were just all fighting, and I was angry, which rarely happened at work. I was really angry. Everyone else was angry, at least most of the people were. We were just griping and fighting, and I was miserable. I was in a bad mood. And so it was one of those days where I left when everyone else left. Usually, I would stay later at that time, but in this day, so it's like, let's just all get out of here and let's see if tomorrow brings something better. So, got out. And I went home and I was still mad, and I said, you know what? Jesse Jackson's in town. I always like listening to Jesse, and I think I'm going to go downtown and hear Jesse Jackson talk. So I go downtown, and I run into a couple of people who I knew. One of the people used to work with my dad at Xerox in town. So I hung with her, and we went in, and we're in Onondaga County War Memorial, where if you remember, I told that story about being at the Jacksons concert. That was at the War Memorial. I can't remember if I mentioned Casey and the Sunshine Band, but that was at the War Memorial. So there you go. And it's building up. This thing is building up. And it's like, wow, this is really going to happen. Jesse Jackson came to Syracuse, and this is really going to happen. So eventually Jesse comes out, and we just all start screaming, and I scream. It's like, dag, it's Jesse Jackson. It shows you how politics has changed a little bit. But here you go. We're just all screaming. And Jesse had this way of talking. I don't know, a lot of folks have heard it now. People my age or maybe like 10 years younger than me will have heard his cadences, but he just has this way of speaking. Well, he's a reverend, so maybe that's what that's all about. But he has this way of speaking where you just really start eating it all up. And everything he said was absolute and right on point. And it was interesting because while I was in that mood, my mind said, you know what, I would do almost anything for this man right now. I would do anything. And he kept going. And at the end of it, where he started screaming, keep hope alive, it was like, oh my God, yes, keep hope alive. I'm going to go out and I'm going to do everything I can for Jesse Jackson. And later on, I thought about it, and I said, in that moment, if Jesse Jackson had said, go out and kill every white person you meet, I would have done it. And I think the entire room would have done it. That's scary, because no person should have that kind of power or that kind of way of getting in your mind. But really, we were just all screaming. We were into it. And then he said, hold on, everybody. Hold on, everybody. Hold on, everyone. I've just been told that there are some kids here who have been rehearsing a song, and they want to sing the song for us now. And you could feel the enthusiasm just drop. And the kids started singing, and a lot of us just started walking out, and we felt deflated. And it was one of those kind of things where you think about it, and I realized on that day that, not counting sports, if my team wins the big championship, I am never going to get that invested in any one person ever again. Michael Jackson doesn't count, because I was more invested in the music. Michael Jackson's favorite artist of all time. I was invested in the music. I wasn't necessarily invested in his personal life. I was not one of those people who put his poster on the wall or anything like that. If he showed up on TV, yeah, I was watching it because Michael Jackson's going to put on a show. But this was a different thing that I felt with Jesse Jackson. And I'd had that feeling previously when I was much younger. But I realized in that time, one, you can get really invested in someone and take it to an extreme and realize, wow, that was scary. I mean, it gave me an impression of what happened with Jim Jones in Guyana. If y'all don't know about that one, go look up Jim Jones, Guyana, and read about it. If you've ever heard the phrase, drink the KoolAid, that's where it came from. And it's just one of those kind of things where you kind of see that today. The other day there was a video, or last week there was this video that was going around where this reporter asked this kid what had the orange guy done for him that he was really impressed with. And the kid's like, well, actually, I don't know anything he's done. I just support him. And I thought, see, that's wrong. You can't just sit there and say you support someone without actually having a reason why you're supporting them. But at the same time, I thought, he's not fully invested in this. He has no emotional attachment. He's going to do what he does because that's just how he feels. He probably has friends who agree with the same thing, but he's not fully invested in it. And I actually felt better for that than if he had actually come up with something, which he couldn't, because we have to believe in ourselves first. We really do. Because if we believe in ourselves and we hope that we're going to be, well, big in our own eyes, that which is fine, and that we can succeed on our own, we don't need somebody else to be our hero. One of the weirdest things is that we look to Jesse Jackson, at least folks like me, as like the black hero that we were going to follow. Martin Luther King Jr., Jesse Jackson, there it was. Well, there ain't no such person exist anymore. It just isn't there. NAACP isn't that strong anymore. The closest there was, think about this for a minute, was Bill Cosby. Because Bill Cosby marched in the 60s, he marched in the 70s, he gave a lot of money to black colleges and the black, charities. He did a bunch for that. When he had the Cosby Show, he hired mainly black people to work on the show. Bill Cosby almost bought NBC. Yes, that Bill Cosby. And he was the closest that we had. And look how he fell. Luckily, I've never gotten that invested after the Jesse Jackson thing. We have to believe in ourselves. Now, the funny thing is, the next day at work, I got us all together in the big office. The first thing, everyone come in here, and I apologized for me getting upset, for everyone else getting upset. I said, this is just work. This is what we do. We cannot let the company make us fight with each other. We're here in Syracuse. We're going to get the job done. If anyone has anything that they want to say based off of yesterday, you can. But if not, I'm sorry. Matter of fact, I'm paying for lunch today, and we will all have it. And yeah, I paid for lunch. There was about 30 people in the office, so I bought pizza because we all like pizza. But it's just one of those weird things where don't get into that mode where you have that one person who you just feel this much, so much that you will do anything for them regardless of what they have to say. Because unfortunately, ain't nobody perfect, even the person that you may support forever. If it's your parents, that's a different story. You grew up with them, you know them best. And sometimes parents can be wrong. That's all I got. My name is Mitch Mitchell. Y'all let me know what you think. Like, dislike, subscribe, comment, hit that bell, or don't. This is 16. We got 14 more to go. Y'all take care.